Hey, what's up everybody? So last we left off, we were talking about services, and I just wanted to extend that a little bit further. And next we're going to be talking about routing. I took the existing Taco app that we had already created, and I added a route to it. What is a route, you might ask? So a route is just simply a way for us to navigate to another state or view within the browser. Let me show you an example of this. So if I click on Taco here, it goes to the Taco page. And if I click back to menu, it goes back to the main app. How do we do this? In Angular, while there is ng route, it's more primitive and basic. And usually you end up outgrowing that. So we're just going to skip that in general, and we're just going to go right into UIRouter. So UIRouter was created by a third party, and it's kind of become the de facto standard, just as they say here, for routing in Angular. And it allows you to manage state. Let's jump into the code. You'll notice on line 11, I am linking to UIRouter. Now, once you have a production app later in development, you're going to want to use something like npm or bower to manage your different packages. But we're just keeping it really simple, really straightforward, and we're just including it in a link. The first thing that you're going to want to do is require it as dependency. So you'll see UI.router here, and then you're going to create this config block. Now it looks like a bit of code, but it's kind of redundant in terms of each state has a very similar structure. In this config block, we do have two requirements. We have this state provider and we have this URL router provider. The URL router provider has a method otherwise, and that method is pointing to /products. What this is doing is this is saying if the user types in anything in the URL after the main.com and it's not one of these states that we define later, I want you to just go to products. If we wanted to see that in action, you can see like currently it's set to products, but if I just type in some gobbledygook here, look, it still goes to products. It's a good practice to get into, and it just makes it so that it's a better experience for the user if they end up mistyping a URL or whatever. They don't go to a error page like a 404. The next thing we got here is the state provider. The state provider has the state function, and with that, it takes two arguments. The first one is the name of the state. In this case, it's products or product detail. And then the second argument is an object. And that object has a couple of properties to it, which are URL, template URL, controller, and controller as. The URL is what the user will type into the browser to go to this state. The template URL is the HTML template that needs to be displayed when the user calls this state. And then the controller is what controller, and the controller as is what name are we going to use within the template when we're referencing the object on the controller. One other little thing to note here is on the product detail, you can actually have dynamic routes or dynamic URLs. So what this means is because this template is going to be the same on all these, the only thing that really needs to change is the data. So we need some unique identifier to say what it's going to change. So in this case, it's a product ID. So each product has its own ID. And just by putting this colon, we're saying, hey, this is a dynamic property. So we're going to look for that property in the URL. Let's look at how that actually gets persisted. So if you see up here, it says products. I click on Taco, and now it says products/001. 001 is the product ID. Great. Now we have this config all set up. Let's move into the product list. The product list, last we left off, was pretty similar to this. One of the things that I added was this UISref. The UISref is the way you create a hyperlink. When you're defining that, you define it by the name of the state, not the URL. And then if there's any parameters that you would like to add to that, you do so with parentheses. So like it's a function, and then it has an object that you pass within it. So that object, we have the product ID, and we're passing in product.id from the object. Where does this show up in the controller? Like, how do we get access to this? Let's take a look at that. In the controller, I'm pulling in state, and the current product state has params, and then within those params, there's a product ID. With this, I'll actually pull in, if there is a product ID, I'll pull it in here, and I'll have access to it. And then I just extended the products factory, created a get product method, and I'm passing in the current product. And then I'm displaying that in the view. So if we look at the factory, we can see get product. I just pass in the ID, and then I put that into the get request. Here I'm still using hard-coded JSON, but that's what the object looks like. There's a lot of complexities that we can get into, but I just wanted to get you a brief taste of what routing would look like, some common things that you would want to do. Thanks for watching. I'll link the code in GitHub in the show notes and also provide some additional resources. If you like the show, give it a thumbs up or subscribe. I'm Jeff, and this was Decoding Dev.